Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this special harvest webinar called Finding the Silver Linings Amid the COVID-19 Dark Economic Outlook. I'm Cindy Code, and I'm your moderator for today's webinar. For several weeks, even a month, the harvesters have been working around the clock, taking your calls, gathering the most up-to-date information, and needed to create the best practices for leading and managing during this crisis. More than anything else, the harvesters have preached keeping calm. Our hope is that you have been able to do that. Today, head harvester Judd Griggs will be our presenter, along with co-founders of the Harvest Group, Bill Arman and Ed LaFlamme. Judd will focus on the positives that have taken place amid or among the negatives. Things like how landscapers have been able to work more efficiently, how they've grown and made more money, building stronger teams, and much, much more. So Judd, he is the newest member of the Harvest Group, but he's certainly not new to the landscape industry. On the contrary, he's been around for 40 years. He understands the landscape industry and the challenges of running and growing your business. He's the real deal, and he's a leader. He was past president of ALCA, which is now the NALP. He's worked at some of the premier landscape companies in the industry, including Leeds, Lambert, and Smallwood. Judd's strengths are growing companies through sales systems, processes, and customer service. And his knowledge of landscape design and design build systems make Judd a sought-after consultant. We're certainly lucky to have him on the Harvest team. But before we get to today's webinar, we'd like to thank Verizon Connect for their partnership of our Harvest webinar series. Verizon Connect is a great fit with the Harvest goal of addressing business pain points. And now more than ever, safety and employee accountability benefits are very helpful, particularly if vehicles are garaged at home. The Verizon Field Service Management app can help streamline scheduling and field communication with crews and customers. So thank you, Steve Diogo and the team over at Verizon Connect. We'd also like to thank our partner, Boss LM, who provides another product that can save you lots of time in your business. Boss LM provides your business with the ability to track gross margins by crew and by day, and you're quickly able to compare your job estimates with actual numbers. So thank you, Mike Cousins and the team over at Boss LM. So, as mentioned, along with Judd, we have head harvesters Bill and Ed, who will lead us through this webinar. And we certainly encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. You can write them in the question box, the chat box on your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the webinar. So, I think we're ready to get started. Judd, why don't you take us away?
Thanks, Cindy. Really appreciate the great introduction. That was very, very nice. I am happy that Harvester Bill from the West and Harvester Ed from the East agreed to join me. I thought it'd be good to get their perspective from their ends of the world on the positives that they're seeing in this whole crazy world we live in right now. So, I know a lot of you are thinking, how can I be positive about anything right now? Getting bombarded with all kinds of negative news from every direction. And I'm usually a pretty positive guy. But I've been finding over the last couple of weeks, I've been getting more and more down in the dumps because every time you turn on the newscast, it's another gloom and doom type of ad or news that comes out. But the other night, my wife and I were sitting out on our back deck. It was just a gorgeous evening. And we were just sitting there, the wind was blowing, trees were blooming around us, birds were singing. We actually had a couple birds that were feeding their young, and it was a pretty cool thing to see, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so, I started thinking, life is good. Life is actually going on amongst this pandemic. There must be some positive things that are coming out of this. So I started writing down things that night, jotting things down. I asked some of the fellow harvesters, what their thoughts were, and we came up with a pretty good list of some positive things that are happening. So let's start talking about those. Harvester
Oh,
Bill, you
bet
ready
I
to
am,
get going?
Harvester Judd. I can't wait.
Harvester Ed, you ready?
Yes, sir. Because all you've been talking about so far is all these negative things. Let's go with the positive, Judd.
Well, it's not all great news, is it, Harvester Ed?
No. No, it's not.
You keep reminding me, Harvester Ed, that there's some negatives out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Yeah, there are. There's a lot. I know that
Okay.
some of the companies I work with, their clients. Well, we talked this morning, Bill. He had 26 in the company with the virus. Can you imagine that? And every time you turn the TV on, there's nothing good. And just like you've got on the screen here, another depression. Really? I don't know. More and more people get unemployed every day. What is it? 25 or 30 million right
that's in a
now?
week.
That's
in a
incredible.
day.
It's like crazy. It's like crazy. Yeah, and like a lot of my clients, their projects are delayed or canceled. They're losing their enhancement work. That's happening all the time, and it's just not a good sign. Everybody's kind of gloomy. They're all worrying a lot. Do you have some good news?
Just think if you're taking care of hotels right now or any retail centers, holy smokes, their sales are down to zero. So that means your sales on those jobs are going to be pretty close to zero, right?
I had a client that got an email that said, well, 50% of the contract is over. It's we're going to cut it by 50%. That's not good. But so there's a lot of negative things out there, right, Judd? A lot. And I know
really,
you've got
really
some,
is.
I know you've got some pretty cool positive things. I hope they're going to outweigh the negative.
Well, my mind, negative sensational news, that's always sells. I mean, anytime there's a hurricane brewing out in the Gulf, the news is filled with hurricanes, or a big snowstorm moving up the East Coast, or multi-car pile up on the freeway. That's what sells. Unfortunately, it's the good news, the positive news. They always hide that at the end of the newscast. And people are so tired of listening to the news, they've already flipped it off by the time that the good news comes on. Or it might be page 12 of your e-newsletter, some obscure podcast. That's why today I think it's important to talk about the positives, because there's a whole lot out there. As Albert Einstein once said, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is opportunity that is coming out of this, because there are some great ones, especially for the green industry. So I started thinking back the other day, when was the last crash? When was the last economic downslide? And back in 2008, you remember that far back?
I do. A vivid memory. And, when the housing didn't start anymore. They stopped. So when the housing stopped, that stops a lot of industry, and particularly the landscape industry. So if your landscape design build comes to a crashing halt, and that has a kind of a domino effect all the way through back to the landscape maintenance people. Because guess what? If landscape construction guys aren't doing construction, they're born again landscape maintenance guys. And then they mess up the pricing and do it. It just gets to be a big mess. Harvester Ed and I have been around a long time. We've seen all sorts of calamities. We're out here in California. It's drought. I've been through 3 recessions. We've had the unions try to unionize our industry out here. We've seen lots of things, but nothing like this. And you're right. Opportunity abounds everywhere. Yeah, the credit was.
Banks are still open, aren't they? Last time I checked, banks are still open. They're still lending money.
Money is coming out. Interest rates are low. Before that, money wasn't around. You couldn't get it, and it was high interest. So interest rates are all-time low. I'm going to refinance my house. Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, yeah. It'd be crazy not to right now with the rates the way they are.
And too, Judd, the private equity people in the U.S., they're just sitting on a pile of cash right now because they haven't done anything with it in months. and they're still prowling, looking for where
Yeah,
to
we have
put.
buyers not literally call us up every week looking for sellers for company to sell. So don't think that's going to affect your business. If it's running properly and it has good track record, the virus won't wipe that out that much, really, quite frankly.
I agree. Like you mentioned, the housing market is still very strong. The last time I read, there's $6.3 trillion of home equity.
Wowzer.
And back in 2008, how many people lost their homes?
Yeah.
They had no equity.
Yep.
Gone. Just the first, I just read an article here in Georgia that in the first 2 weeks of the month, pending home sales are up 10% already.
Wow.
That's incredible. Up 10% in the first 2 weeks.
It's unbelievable.
So what are the positives that have come out? Right? And like we've been saying, we didn't have to go too far to find the positives. First one for the green industry, of course, is landscaping is considered essential. And are there any parts of the country on your coasts, Harvester Bill, Harvester Ed, that's not essential?
Yeah, there are a few. In on the island of Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, construction shut down for a significant amount of period of time. So just opening up a little bit. And if you're not construction for hospitals and essential services, that's come to a pretty slow in the state of Washington and the state of Hawaii. Everything else is fairly well opened up all the way through.
Yeah. That's the same where I am. All of New England, it's all open. I mean, there's certain, all the landscapers are working and actually, except for one client I have in New Jersey, southern New Jersey, they're all doing very, very well.
No, we're just really fortunate to be in an industry that's considered essential. We may have to change the way we do business, and that's what we'll be getting to today. Continue to work in some modified way. See, this gentleman has his assistant working with him at home.
6 feet apart, though. That's pretty close.
Consider the alternative. We talked about the unemployment rates before. The green industry really hasn't had to lay off much of anybody, which is pretty cool. We're looking to hire. What's really hard for me to believe is, what was it, 6-8 weeks ago, we were complaining about nobody's looking for work. We can't find able-bodied people to put on our crews. Unemployment was under 3%. Just think how things have changed in just a few weeks' time.
Incredible. It's incredible, really.
It's incredible. So, to me, this is the best time to upgrade your team. And, this is the time we should hire from a position of strength. The green industry market is strong, solid, and there's 27 to 30 million people out there that don't have jobs. You think they'd like a job in our industry? They may not have ever considered
one thing on the West Coast, and I'm not sure if it's pretty prevalent throughout the industry. Let's just call it what it is. Not a lot of our team members have driver's licenses. Not a good indicator, by the way. But I'm amazed at how many people are showing up looking for jobs that have actual driver's licenses. That's pretty optimistic, right? Now you have multiple choices to promote within. With people's driver's license. Many of our companies have chauffeurs driving around their crew leaders. So maybe we could end that little episode right here. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Think of the cost of those chauffeurs.
Yeah, cost of a chauffeur is just slightly lower than a crew leader. So you're really paying a lot more than just a regular crew member.
And so the companies that they need to realize, the owners and the managers of the companies, they really need to realize that this is the time to continue to recruit. Even though they may be satisfied with who they have right now, there may be a lot better people out there, like Bill just said, that have driver's licenses. So why put up with it anymore? Maybe you can recruit some really good people and keep those people even after. And of course that requires the loyalty program and all the rest of it. But certainly the key is there's a great labor pool out there now that's really possible to go get.
On the professional side, how many sales professionals are out there that are looking for work that could really do gangbusters in our
bet.
industry. Harvester Ed, you may recognize this gentleman. What's his philosophy on upgrading your team?
I do. Jack Welch. I worked for him. I did their corporate headquarters for years and a lot of GE facilities all throughout New England. And I did his house too. But he was a tough character. He didn't get to where he was because he was a pushover. And his philosophy was to cut the bottom 10% of the workforce every year. Talking about the managers now. Every year, 10%, which I think after a while, it's a bit extravagant. And, he never thought so, but his managers did, after 5 or 6 years, come on, right? But that was his philosophy. And boy, it shot that company. When he took over that company, they had a lot of problems. And when he retired, within 5 years or so, he was number one in the United States, the number one landscape company, the number one manufacturing company in the United States.
Hey, I see a question here from Mark, and he's talking about recruiting and what the opportunities are and how to go about doing that. So I would suggest for Mark to talk about going back to recruiting, making sure that it's an effort, identifying your needs, identifying the people you want to have be successful somewhere else. And then your first step is help your people, have them help you recruit. So have a recruiting referral program internally. I think that's your best bet, and make it worth their while to go out hunting for you. They know other people that are in the industry. So make it worthwhile. And I know we have the 1, 2, 3 program, 100 at 90 days, $200 at 6 months, $300 at the end of the year. You can double that. There's all different ways. You can contact any of the harvesters and we'll give you some recruiting ideas.
All right. Next positive that we've seen come out, gas prices, incredibly low right now. Harvester Bill, California, it's about $4 or $5 a gallon right now?
Down. So you're seeing at least $1 less. And you and I were talking yesterday. I was driving down to another part of our county, and I got there at about half the time it usually takes. And why is that? There's nobody on the freeway. So you can get to your jobs, be more efficient, and make more money. Maybe add a couple extras to the maintenance crew and pick up a couple coins on that without disturbing the quality, of course. But there's opportunities there. Now, the downside is don't calculate all your drive times with the new drive time. The new drive time is low. The program in the future for driving is going to go back to normal, but still take advantage of that drive time in your popular areas, real high population. Travel is a huge thing out here in California. There's only 40 million people in this state, folks, in case you didn't know that. Population of Canada.
Same thing here in Atlanta. I mean, it used to, it's gridlock all times of the day here in Atlanta. I can get across town now in 20 minutes, which is incredible.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Can you all see that?
Wow. Look at that.
Can you see that okay?
$1.95.
That was from this morning.
We're like $1.67 here in Georgia.
Yeah. So that's one good thing. It's dropped at least 75 cents to $1.
So we have another question up there. I don't know if you saw that, Harvester Ed, but we're getting people that are making more money on unemployment than they are working with us, right? So they're working on that. The answer is I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure, hopefully, it's going to take some time to figure that one out. Some of the way the government moves, right?
It was my understanding that $600 a week was only for 8 weeks. Isn't that correct?
That's the way I understand the two Harvester Ed.
So it's not forever.
Term. No, it's just to get those people past the hump. So
So I think we're showing gas. Michael's saying gas is $2.69 in Southern California now, and Scott and Don are saying that they're going to end that $600 program in July sometime. So thank you guys for answering that, Scott and Don.
$1.79 in Wisconsin. That's not all bad. So another either side benefit of this less traffic is you look worldwide and the sky. You look up in the sky, you can actually see blue now. The air quality is far better because we have less people on the road. And I know I'm talking like an environmentalist now, Harvester Bill, like those people out in California, but it's incredible how much the air is cleaned up lately.
We're getting some comments on your sound, Harvester Judd. We aren't sure. We think it's Georgia. I think it's a problem stopped there on the Mason-Dixie line somewhere. And
I'm gonna try my headset again, see if that makes any difference.
Or just lean into it a little bit farther. Get a little closer to the mic. Speak up a little more.
Okay, does that work any better?
Look at the electronic buzz on it.
Okay. Sorry about that, all.
He's been drinking that early, huh?
Don't tell anybody about that. All right, next one. We have found new ways to conduct business. Zoom meetings with your team. Harvester Bill, Harvester Ed, what did we just do this past Wednesday?
Well, we thought we did our Zoom planning meeting. So we do planning as well. You know, we advocate this for all our companies that we work with. You have to have a plan. No plan, no way. And you don't have alignment. You don't know where we're going. You don't know what the vision is, mission, all that kind of good stuff. And that's important. And we actually follow our own direction sometimes, folks. So we have an annual summit. We set up our key initiatives, our secondary initiatives. We sign task force champions. We hold each other accountable. And really, it's great stuff. And in today's technology, even though the sound doesn't sound so good, Judd, we got to figure that one out. But here you are. You're seeing us now. We're on a different program. We didn't like the one we had before. The sound wasn't good on that, by the way, either. So we have to figure that one out. But we're on Demio now. We used to be GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, and we've upgraded here. So we can see your questions now. We can interact with you a little bit more. So that's good stuff. So Zoom meetings with your team, great idea. We did that whole Zoom thing last week for our planning session. So here I am.
I like what Scott said. Scott said that Judd sounds like Fauci.
Yeah, he does. He does sound like Fauci, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I wish, Tom, I wish there was a battery to change, but there isn't. What are you going to do?
Are you talking about my battery, Tom?
I better be wearing my mask if Fauci's on there.
That's right.
I'm not following regulations here.
Oh goodness. I think
right.
though what Carol's saying is true though. She said that $600 unemployment shouldn't really be affecting us that much. So I don't think that's a real negative for us. It's a positive for the most part. There are exceptions, of course.
So you can do this video conferencing with your clients as well. I would encourage you to do it. It's good technology except for my microphone.
Maybe just Ed and I can flip. You can flip the slides and we'll just yak it up because it's pretty garbly.
It's pretty bad still with my headset on.
So reporting directly to the job instead of driving people to the job. That was part of one of the solutions we came up with, where you couldn't have more than one person in a truck. We had one of our clients come up with a divider. They built a plexiglass divider in the truck, roll the windows down, then you put two people. You put one in the back, now you put four people. So that's innovation. Direct reports to the job. So that's one of the advantages of having a big maintenance job reporting to the direct. Satellite locations, certainly a good springboard to go into other areas within your territory. So you don't have to go to the main yard, satellite locations, or maybe it's a big job they report to and work out of that. Harvester Ed, you want to talk about preloading and getting ready for the next day?
Yeah, one of my clients last week on a call said that they're saving a fortune because they're more efficient in the morning. There's fewer people in the yard because they're direct reporting to the jobs whenever possible. They're riding in separate trucks or they're following in cars, and they're looking at their unbillable time, and their unbillable time is way down and their productivity is way up. So that's a really strong positive. And the comments I've heard from a number of my clients now are saying, you know what, when this is over, we're going to keep it going the same way.
You might have split start times as well. Send out your crew first, or your maintenance crew, then your extras and irrigation crew. Separate them out so you have different start times.
Absolutely. They're doing that right across the board so that they eliminate the people in the yard and the confusion that goes on.
And the people working remotely seems to be working pretty good, right? Especially if you got the Zoom thing going on, you can see everybody. have your meetings. And
Yep.
I think the big thing here is making sure you keep on communicating. That's one of the key things that we've learned. Communication is critical.
Yeah, I heard last week, my boys were telling me, I have two boys, they're 16 and 18, and they're on all social networks and everything. They said Twitter made an announcement last week that they've divested all their people are working remotely. They said when this is over, it's going to continue forever. It's worked so well. So
New
I
way
think
of doing business.
we're going to see big changes.
Yep.
I can see corporations now just having offices just to meet, occasionally when they have larger groups. Otherwise, they're going to be all working remotely. They're saving so much
people are
money.
taking the responsibility on. They're responsible to their company. Certainly, if you're doing that, you certainly want to have measurable metrics. We talk about skills, behaviors, and results. So make sure you have measurables, in a positive way, hold each other accountable. You bet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's take a good look at your budget and look at some of the items that probably aren't totally necessary on your budget. I was just working with a client recently, and I'm going, I love gross margin, Harvester Ed, Harvester Judd. You know that. I'm a gross marginator. I'm crazy about gross margin, as a matter of fact. So I'm working with a company, and they're grossing 50%. I'm thinking, wow, 50%, that's pretty doggone good. And they're losing money. Huh, what's that mean? They either don't have enough revenue grossing 50% to generate enough dollars to cover the overhead, or their overhead might be too high. So we looked at doing both.
Correct.
You need to increase revenue in the right areas. You need to know what your revenue is per revenue stream, and then associated overhead costs with those revenue streams. Not to take up on, since we got Judd kind of offline here a little bit, this was a landscape construction issue, and they had like 5 overhead people managing 2 crews. So they didn't have enough revenue at all. So that possibly could be a revenue cut.
5, Bill?
5.
Holy cow.
For 2 crews. They better be making a whole bunch of revenue to make that work, right?
Maybe 1, maybe.
Yeah. So then we do a whole scenario. If you drop that entire revenue stream with all the associated overhead costs, what would the rest of the company look like? Would it be making money?
Yeah. Interesting.
That's a real eye-opener for them.
So always good time to SWOT yourself, and this is a classic planning process, determining what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We added another T, by the way, for trends. What are the trends that are in your industry right now? And the trend is this virus thing, right? And how to deal with it. We also like to SWOT our competition. You should know your top 5, 6 competitors and what all their SWOT analysis comes up to be. So it's a great time to do some reflection, doing analysis, not only for your own company, but for your competition as well.
Yeah, and since you brought that up, doing competitive analysis is so important. And nowadays we can just go on a website and find out a lot where they're strong, where they're weak. It's so easy now. And if we talk to our vendors and we talk to subcontractors, we can really get a lot of information that really helps us to be more rounded of the people we're bidding against.
That reminds me of another recruiting tip. Thanks for that, Ed. Your vendors can be good recruiters for you. And if you let them know, guess what? You know what recruiters want from you? They want you to stay in business and be successful forever and spend money with them. So if you spend a lot of money with a vendor, you can adopt them as a recruiter for you as well. I've done some great recruiting. Some of my vendors, 2 of my best vendors were some of my best recruiters. All right, best practices.
Yep. Especially those budgets, right, Bill?
Yeah, we spent some time this morning on a turnaround tour client out in New Jersey, and he doesn't know what his margin is, doesn't know what it is, and they're still trying to get set up.
And you gave him great advice. What was the advice you gave him about the harvest budget? What should they be doing? They should be
doing what we call the mini budget, and that was the mini budget really shows what your actual revenue streams are performing in by revenue stream and gross margins by revenue stream. And then you do your trajectory for the remainder of the year, where you're going to end up at. We call it the financial smoke alarm. So if you want to find out more about the mini budget, drop my email. I'd be happy to review that with you. It's one of my favorites, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the best practices is the time to document them and make sure that you have them in place. You have that extra time.
Yeah, so we talked about budget, and we find that virtually, I'm going to say 80%, and I'm being conservative, people don't have budgets. They don't budget. They have a P&L. They might look at it quarterly. Some don't even look at it. They don't. And quite frankly, the way they have set up a lot of these profit and loss statements, they're not that useful of a tool. So I want to talk a little about cash. You want to talk about the royal court here, Harvester Ed? Cash, king, queen, the entire court.
Well, yeah, I think that's extremely important right now because of the uncertainty of the times we're living in. We best try to preserve all the cash we can. I wouldn't be paying anything for cash. I'd be financing everything I could and conserve all the cash I could right now. I think that in the future, we could be looking into some pretty heavy taxes. I was talking to an economist last week, and the comments were, we're not headed for inflation because there isn't any cash on the street. We're going to be headed for very high taxation to pay back this debt. So the government printed $3 trillion. They printed it, by the way. And then they're talking about another $3 trillion. That's going to raise the national debt by $6 trillion. Okay. And that means that they're going to have to raise taxes in order to really repay that money. So that means we're going to be in for it in the future. And it's going to be a very difficult time. So I think the more efficient we can get, save our cash, don't invest in any large expenditures if you can help it. It would be better to try to be more conservative, maybe rent instead of buy right now, just to be careful so that, again, I would err on the conservative side than on the spending cash.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week with Commander Kelly a little bit. Have a plan. You and your team as a leader, you need to have a plan, and everybody has to be on the same page with that plan, singing from the same hymnal, as we say. And you draw a best scenario, you draw the worst scenario, then you draw the probable scenario. And in today's reality, you probably need to take a review of that. I'd say at least monthly, maybe every other week. How's the plan going? And when you're really into crises, it could be daily. Ed, you're talking about a client where they check in the morning and check in the afternoon, right?
Absolutely. Every single morning, just 10 minutes, morning and the end of the day, morning into the day. Mary Kelly was saying, that was Commander Kelly last week, or when we had the webinar with her. She was in active duty in intelligence in the Navy during 9/11, and she said they met every single morning at 7 a.m. and every single night at 7 p.m. And they got together physically back then, and they spent whatever time it took to understand what was going on so they could plan. So I think that's a valid point, Bill, about getting together often and thinking through what's going on.
Yeah,
that's
and I put
key.
it in writing. Have it in writing so you're looking at from the same script. And you may even have, I was talking about one of my clients, they actually have talking points in the trucks with the crew leaders, just to remind them if a client comes up and asks them a few questions, they have talking points. Ultimately, it refers it back to the office, but if they can answer some immediate questions on what's going on, they had talking points all scripted out for them, English and in Spanish. It was pretty good. I like that.
That's a great idea.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and I think having a contingency plan in place. States are opening now. Are you ready to go back to work in 2 weeks, 30 days? Or what they're talking about is if this virus hits again in the fall or the winter, then we go into another lockdown. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, one of the things we're hearing is that we've reduced the price in the services, the customers are expecting the same level of service. So you're going to have to learn how to manage your customers' expectations, because they're going out there. I have a a client that has a lot of hotels, and they're out there picking away at the, a few weeds here, and it's not as good looking as it was when you had full staff on it. It went from 5 full-time people to 3 full-time people, actually 2 full-time people, 5 to 2, and they expected the same results. Not going to happen. So you better communicate with your customer. You bet.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about one of the things on diversification of your portfolio. Now, this is where I get busted, because I've always been saying I'm not a big HOA fan, homeowner association fan. I just don't like the politics involved in that business. And residential, I'm always talking down about that. Well, those are the most vibrant marketplaces right now, and my retail, I'm always, go to retail, go to commercial. I've done some hotels. They've been pretty good to me over the years, and those have been kind of the duds. So the point here is, do you have a diverse enough blend of market and not so heavily weighted into one customer? If you're more than 30% in one market or more than 30% with one customer, you're out of balance a little bit. So you need to get more of a balanced portfolio and think about in the future sales of that, doing that. The people that are in HOAs, I live in an HOA right now, has 1,320 homes, and it's $1 million a year contract, and they're working full tilt boogie out front. Extras, they're re-landscaping all the main entrances, they're pruning the trees. I mean, it's wide open. And the other one, normally nurseries are okay. During session, they don't do so good because it starts shutting down. I went to a nursery yesterday. I had to stand in line with my car waiting for a parking spot. They had people navigating you into the nursery. Nurseries are full tilt, killing it right now, retail and wholesale. Just knocking them dead. And that's great news. People are out there, they're trying to keep busy doing something. They're working in their yard. This is in the middle of the day. Capacity. Every nursery I went to.
Yeah, I find the same thing.
On the construction side, you may want to think of adding something like lighting, where you may not be doing the big projects right now, but add something like lighting, which can fill out some gaps in your schedule.
Yeah, irrigation, retrofitting, irrigation repair, lighting, all those ancillary services, construction. You bet.
Like we said before, this is the time to go out of your way to communicate.
Yeah, when we asked Commander Kelly a couple of weeks ago, we asked what was the number one thing that leaders should focus in on right now. And it was staying calm and communicating. You have to over communicate. You bet. And communication, as Judd puts up here, it really helps build relationships, not only with your team. It starts your team and your clients. You have to have that simultaneously. Your team you have to have a calming effect, but positive energy towards the right direction. Got to be directionally correct, and touching base with your team on a regular basis. Very, very important. So
I was going to say, though, we have to be careful that we're communicating with our customer, but not too much, where we're bugging them. So, there's a balance to it. So I think we have to be careful.
Right. But I think what I mean here is communicate in that, ask them about not just business, but ask them about their family. How are you doing? Is everybody healthy in your family? Ask your employees that too. That's how you build relationships.
Yeah, if you don't hear what Judd's saying, he said, build relationships not just around business, but around their family as well. We were talking this morning, Bill and I, with a client, and we were saying how important it is to really get to know the client. Some of his clients, he was telling us about how the one guy called him up and said, "Hey, Bill, come on over."
He says,
"Okay, what are we doing?" He says, "We're gonna go bowling."
Yeah,
right, Bill. He's okay. It was one of his biggest customers, yeah. So he went bowling that afternoon.
$1 million a year customer. I love bowling all of a sudden, right? I don't even know how to score on bowling. It's been so long since I bowled. They say they have electronic scoring now. You push a button, you can get a beer, and it scores for you. I love bowling.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we do have to take so that we can turn a negative into a positive by having really good communications sincere communications with our
Yeah,
clients. And we can develop new ones by doing the
yeah,
same
and
thing.
as Judd points out here, you need to rework and reformulate and reinforce your unique sales proposition, or the compelling reason why they picked you to begin with. Keep on reinforcing that. And part of that is proactive solutions to their issues and challenges. Using technology right now, you go out and videotape you out in the field and doing a proposal. Here's some stuff that's going on, and you can still conduct business remotely. They probably dig that. They probably don't have to go out and do all the walkthroughs and drive all over the place. So you can save them some time. But don't forget to reformulate, reinforce, and your whole unique sales proposition, or the compelling reason they picked you in the first place. Don't let them get lost, right?
Just to change tack slightly, Scott just wrote in that, his leads are down. And you know what? I have heard the same thing from my clients, but the quality of the leads are up. And that's really key. I think that's really strong, because the people calling now are serious.
That's a good point, Scott.
And I think
Yeah.
Isn't that great? We could really take advantage of that for sure.
Yep, you bet. And so one of the things that Judd's pointing out here is get back into the balance. And yeah, you know what? I call ourselves sometimes, don't think this is bad, but we call ourselves urban farmers. The plants don't stop growing at 5 o'clock, right? And a lot of us are wrapped up in our businesses. We're spending one heck of a lot of time at work. So now you get this great opportunity to get your life more balanced. Now, have I done that? Probably not. But hey, I played golf last week. Hopefully I'm planning on doing that maybe every other week. What the heck, right?
That's right. That's for sure. Hey, you're saying just walk 4,000 steps a day, huh? Well, in my morning walk, I go 5,000. So I'm ahead of the curve, John.
I do about 1.5 miles a day. And so I don't know how many steps that is, probably a few. And so, great time.
But Harvester Bill, you have to pick up the pace
faster
during that walk. Yeah, a little faster.
Can't do it with a glass of wine in your hand.
Exactly. Have the vision in your mind about the wine at the end.
The wine and cheese. I might have to take a few more steps, right? So let's take a look at.
It is true.
Yeah, my wife and I have watched a little bit of Netflix to mention it, right? And reading a good book, you bet. I'm reading all different. Ed and I, we share books all the time. So there are a lot of good books out there. Harvester Cindy is going to help start up our book club. So recommended books that we expect landscapers to know and read. And there's a lot of good reading out there, folks.
Hopefully they're all on Audible, huh?
Yeah. So
hopefully everybody's doing that.
So finding it. Finding a balance in your life. So yesterday we took the time out to go visit my daughter and her new husband, and they happened to move next door to my son and his wife. So we spent some quality time there with them at a safe distance, and it was really pretty special. So take time to spend time with your family.
What are you reading right now,
Well,
Bill?
I'm going back and going through a couple of them. I'm reading Commander Kelly's book on succession planning, which I think is a great book, and for people that are thinking about changing their businesses and having a succession plan in place. She goes step by step through the whole process, and it's a great book. And then
Awesome.
I'm also going back to Traction, reading the book Traction, which is really kind of I don't know where these guys. They must have been listening in our planning meetings, because it sounds like a lot of hard.
Those guys copied us, Bill. They copied us.
I can't believe that they were listening in on our stuff. They must have had a FISA warrant to come find us. Somebody unmasked us and was following our whole prescription for success. But it's a great book called Traction. And I just recently advanced.
I have a pretty cool one I'm going through called Fanatical Prospecting. Fanatical Prospecting. It's a pretty interesting book. Yeah, I think it's contrary to a lot of salespeople what they'd want to do, but I think it's very effective. I'm enjoying it.
So, and you had sent me the book Scaling Up, which was a real good book too.
The Rockefeller reports, and the thing there that one thing that just jumped off the page in there was really, they call it scorecards. We call it a grow card. They believe that's as important, if not better, than a job description. So it really talks about the results that are expected, and if where you're calibrated on your results delivered. So that really was an aha moment for the harvesters. Our grow cards rock. So I think the main thing here is being positive, being a leader. You need to remain positive. You're the energy source for your company. People are watching you. You know, they hear your words, but they see your behaviors. That's a Mark Sanborn quote that I really love. They hear your words, but they believe your behaviors. So you're on display every day. So if you're whining and fussing and crying about this virus and the economy and all this other stuff, it's going to be contagious just as bad as the virus. And it's not a good thing. We met with the turnaround tour guy this morning, our Frank guy from New Jersey with Custom Landscapes. And he's taken over the business from his dad. And he's such a positive energy, good thinking, positive, we'll get through it. He had 26 employees that had the virus. 26. Can you imagine if you had 26 cases of the virus in your company, how that would affect you? He says, hey, it was crisis management there. It was wild and crazy, but we're back to routine now. We're thankful. All but 2 are back now, and we're ready to roll. So it looks like, hey, what the heck is this? Is this look at this thing here. Judd, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, just hopefully you can hear through my garbled microphone here, but there's one other point before we jump into this is that we've got 2 options at this point. As things open up, we can either go back to the work, as is, work as usual, or we can go down the other path, like Robert Frost said, go down the path less traveled and take advantage of some of these new ways of doing business that we talked about. And that's what you should be doing rather than going back to business as usual when things open up. Yeah,
it looks like Fabiola Torres talks about the OSHA guys, and you know what? I've heard that a couple of times. That could be a little scary. They're looking for some revenue, and if you have an insurance company you're working with, they should have the OSHA checklist, what they look for. I would get that up on the radar screen pretty quick, so you aren't in any egregious violations, because they're looking for some of that. You bet.
I haven't heard of any OSHA inspectors in any of my clients, though.
Yeah.
Have any of you out there listening had any OSHA inspectors around? It'd be interesting to see what they say.
Looks like Jessica in Nevada.
I said we have in Nevada. Yeah, Nevada they have.
So I had one in Orange County, California, and in Las Vegas, Nevada. It wasn't pretty. As former employees of the company being interviewed by their competitor, and the competitor suggested that they contact OSHA. So that was like throwing a hand grenade back in the trenches.
Well,
all the other places looks like no in Cleveland, no in Long Island, and no in Virginia. So thanks for that feedback, folks.
Good.
Not Washington.
Yeah. So what do we have here,
right.
Judd? You've got a digital assessment for when things open up.
Yeah, one of the most popular things that our clients, like the harvesters, do is come in and do a full assessment of their company, and you spend a day or two, just taking the company apart, looking at the things that are going well, things that need improvement, and put together that playbook that Bill was talking about before with the scorecard. And what we're offering here is changing our business a little bit and doing a digital assessment where we're going to identify one aspect of your business, one thing that's keeping you awake at night, and we're going to do an assessment of that with you. We'll send you some homework to do, and then I'll spend several hours with you, either digitally by Zoom or on the phone, and really come up with a list of things that you can put into practice immediately to improve that aspect of your business.
Judd, let me just ask, can you hear Judd at this point? Those of you out there listening, are you able to hear Judd?
No.
Steve says no.
Garble.
Chris says
right,
garble.
So you may have
yes.
So maybe do a little recap, Ed.
Yeah, they can hear, but not clearly. Some are saying garbled, crackled.
You have to move to Florida.
Yeah, it looks like Atlanta's just not working for you, Judd. but the bottom line is, as he's saying, he's got a tremendous offer for anyone who wants help in one particular part of their business. And he's going to be doing, as we all do, very exhaustive, investigation assessment. And if you're interested in doing any of that, please take advantage of it, because normally we're at a relatively competitive rate, but now because of the situation, we're discounting it quite a bit. So we don't have to leave home. We don't have to take the time to travel. So we're going to pass that savings on to you. So take advantage of that. You can just click there and you can sign Judd up, and it won't be garbled. I promise.
And we'll have you have some tools as well to give out, Harvester Judd, that are very helpful. Quite frankly, we spent, between the three of us, we have almost 150 years in the business. Ed has 100 years experience by himself, and we're going to be handing out some.
It only feels like it, Bill.
Some pretty cool tools to go along with that. So he'll be picking out one or two of your metrics, say revenue of sales and growth in your revenue. Maybe it's gross margin, maybe it's safety, maybe it's operations. But I'm a measurable kind of person. I love measuring results. So we'd pick an area. You pick an area that you feel you need the most help in, and we want to measure the results and get results. We're here to help you harvest your potential, right? Each and every one of you have fun with that to have harvest, quite frankly. So you can have an opportunity to buy now, and if you click down there, you'll get the offer. And I think it's limited till this afternoon for to buy this discounted rate for Harvester Judd. So it's good. You got 5 minutes.
How do we get? Hey, Bill, how do we get that? How do we get John's comment up on the screen? How do we do that?
It's up there. I think a lot of people are seeing that. So it's John Lamb. John's good to hear from you, and he's talking about how nice it is to hear from Judd. He says, your picture is on his entrance wall at John Ham's place, and his picture shows you and him planting flowers. Get this, folks, 45 years ago. And so
I was 5 years old at that time.
He knew you had that much talent back then. He could tell you're a superstar potential planting those flowers.
That was my first job in the industry that John gave me, and it was a memorable experience.
That's pretty good stuff.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Really good stuff.
So anyway,
we've got.
So we had a poll question too. Poll question is, when do you think your market is going to be back functioning as normal, and normal in parentheses, as normal as it can be? But when do you think your market's going to be back up and running as close to 100% as possible?
We have a pop-up right there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just got a bulletin from Chris. We have a pop-up right there, so you need to click on there if you're going to take us up on that offer, take Judd up on that offer. So you got to.
Yeah, they're doing that right now. It's pretty cool.
Buy that. You got to click on the pop-up. If that makes any sense. I think it makes a lot of sense, don't you think? Harvester Ed? Harvester Judd?
I do.
There's a lot of sense in there.
All the problems I have in my company, I'd hire Judd in a minute.
Yeah.
What company are you talking about, Ed?
We won't go there.
Judd was very gracious. We sent several of our companies we work with over to Lambert's in Texas, and I don't know if many of you know of Lambert's. Probably in the top 5, maybe top 3 high-end residential design build companies, landscape build in the entire United States. And they said, man, Judd welcomed with open arms, had an agenda, had a great lunch, toured them through the nursery, toured the thing. First class guy for those of you that know Judd. And we certainly welcome Judd to be our newest harvester that we brought on. So we now have 8 harvesters, 4 of which are operationally centric, which would be Fred, Ed, Judd, and Bill. They want to rename me Ted. Fred, Ed, Ted, and Judd. But I'm sticking with Bill. So those are the operational side of the team at the Harvest Group. And then we have 4 specialists, one HR, PR, IT, right? And then what's our 4th one? We've got a 4th one. Peer groups. Well, no, yeah.
Peer groups. Mergers and acquisitions, Bill.
Harvest.
There we go.
company, which
Yes, we do that too.
Fortunately, we've had the good fortune, and the people that sold their companies. We closed 3 deals in January, so just a couple of months ahead of the virus, and the buyers are still.
And are those owners happy, huh?
Happy.
Are those owners happy or what?
If you know it and if you know it and you're happy, just slap a friend, clap your hands. These guys they're pretty doggone happy. So that's another thing. If you're even thinking about selling or doing a succession plan for your legacy transition to your kids or your top employees, we do have that service available with Head Harvester Allison. You can look on our website and harvest the green area. So 4 specialists and 4 operational people covering the United States. So we've enjoyed.
So it looks like, Bill, it looks like the majority, 41%, believe it's going to be 6 months to a year before things get back to what's considered normal, or the new normal anyway. 6 months to a year. See, 25% believes less than 6 months. And 27%, which is quite a few, they believe 1 to 2 years. More than 2 years, 1. And we even have one that says never. It may never get back to the way it is, but hopefully it will.
So getting back,
I know that.
Getting back to the offer with Judd, we highly encourage to do that. He's going to spend obviously a lot more time than what that amount would normally mean, right? So it's going to be a crazy amount of information to help you guys continue with your success. So we highly encourage you to take Judd up on his offer. It's a good one. So what else do we have to cover, gentlemen?
Just want to thank our partners again. Thank you guys for bailing me out.
And I would say too, just after hearing all of this, and we hear so much bad news. After thinking about some of the good news, it would be good. Bill was talking about the planning sessions, and Judd was talking about that too. When you sit down as a group of your people, whether you do it virtually or in person now, think about the positive things that are occurring in your company that you may never change, like the virtual meetings, or maybe the you're not all meeting in the yard anymore, or you have staggered times, or you're better, more efficiency, more on billable hours. All of that, whatever that's affecting you right now in a positive way, maybe we can just keep this thing going for forever now with your company, because we're learning from it. I was just watching a show this morning that said that the one of the big pandemics that happened in the past resulted in people cleaning up the cities, paving roads, and creating sewers, believe it or not.
Yeah, did you hear that too?
Before that, they didn't have it.
Yep. Yep.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. So this pandemic will be causing the same type of thing, not sewers, but because there'll be positive things that come up as a result of this as well. So let's keep tabs on it. Keep thinking about it. Write those things down.
Great. That's super. And we're sorry about the communication glitch. And then that would illustrate you need to have some option plans in whatever you do. Have a plan B and plan C, folks, because
Ed and Bill were B and C.
No matter whatever technology
right.
is out there, there's always going to be some kind of glitch somewhere until you work your way through it. So that's how the harvesters roll, and that's how landscapers roll. That's what we do. Nothing's guaranteed, right? So we thank you for tuning in with us. We look forward to some more webinars in the future. We'll have a schedule posted probably within hopefully 2 weeks after our summit planning meeting. We recognize that having our schedule up on our website is a good thing to have. So you could tune in and see where our activity will be in the future. And just one more reminder for Judd's offer. You have that offer pop up. Just click on that if you'd like to take a look at that program. It's a great one. Well worth it. I can assure you. I can absolutely positively assure you.
Judd, thanks for putting all this together for us.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks for joining me and bailing me out with the audio problems, but it was fun, and hopefully everybody got a lot out of it.
Cheers, guys.
Good. Take care. Take care, everybody. Thanks for attending and watching.